Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Beacon Hill Podcast. I'm Joel Betts,
I'm Jake Edwards.
and we're here, and we're ready to do this thing, right?
I'm excited. I'm ready to talk a lot.
It's officially spring now,
Yeah,
Jake,
yeah,
which is exciting. You know, we've had some beautiful weather here.
yeah.
It's supposed to be 87 tomorrow, which
That's
is wild.
crazy.
It's crazy.
It was like 40 degrees this morning.
I know. That's quite the swing. Quite the swing.
It's good for everybody's allergies and colds and stuff.
It's tough. It's tough. In light of that, I thought we would do something a little bit different
Okay.
today, Jake. So I thought we would do an exercise, a little activity, where I'm going to give you a list of things relating to spring,
Okay.
and you're going to rank them from 1 being the best
Yeah.
to 10 being the worst.
Okay.
But you don't know what the next item is.
Okay.
So, you could put something good high, but then
it
something
has
even
something
better.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Here we go. The first thing.
10. No.
And the disclaimer,
I'm going to
disclaimer.
blind rank them.
just a disclaimer, Easter is and Good Friday. None of that stuff is on here. We're
Right.
gonna assume that
They're number one.
that's your
Yeah,
number
yeah.
one. So I
Right.
don't want you
Sure.
to do this exercise worried about I gotta save Easter.
We get to the 9th or 10th
resurrection.
thing and everybody's like, what the heck? He's only got 9 left. or
Yeah. We're gonna assume
Okay.
that of course
Is number one.
is your number one.
Okay.
The resurrection, the gospel, it's all there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right, and we'll talk more about that one.
Okay. I gotcha.
All right. First item,
Uh-huh.
rank from 1 to 10. Peeps.
Peeps.
The marshmallow treat Peeps. Now, I know that this is
Mhm.
kind of a year-round kind of thing now.
Yeah.
But growing up,
It was just Easter.
it just showed up around spring, Easter time. Peeps, 1 to 10.
I'm going to go 9
He's going to
on
put that at
Peeps.
9.
I'm not a peep guy.
Not a peep guy?
You won't hear a peep out of me. Right, Joel?
Not at all. I've never seen you eat Peeps.
Nope.
And now I know why.
Not
I
a peep guy.
had a professor in college
Yeah.
who was super into Peeps.
Oh.
Shout out to Dr. D. Clavon if you're out there.
He sounds like the worst.
No, man, he was awesome.
He just liked Peeps.
People would bring him Peeps. He'd had
Mhm.
a Peeps, I think it was a Peeps themed clock. And
Wow. Okay.
love Peeps, man.
All right.
That was cool.
Well,
All right.
I'm going to go 9 on that.
9
one.
on that one. March Madness buzzer beaters.
I mean, I'm going to go 2 on that one.
2. That's pretty high.
I like it. I'm a big basketball fan.
Yeah.
I love buzzer beaters. My team had a really great one that they play every year.
Did they?
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about buzzer beaters.
Hey, let's put that in the show notes,
Yeah.
GJ, for people
Yeah,
to
let's
go
see
watch
the-
that one.
Let's see the clip.
The buzzer beater, I'm sure it was against a really good team, right? Like a really high seeded team that they almost couldn't beat, but they did.
It was against a good team.
What was their seed in the tournament
I don't
out
remember.
of 16 teams?
I don't remember.
I guess.
Were they a 1 seed?
No, I think that's what Duke was, right?
Yeah.
So what was the team they were playing that they hit the buzzer beater against that you got so excited about?
Like a 16 probably.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
You know.
Were they a 2 seed?
No, bro. They were clearly a 16. 1s and 2s haven't even played each other yet.
I'm talking about you know what buzzer
talking
beater
about
I'm
the
talking
shot,
about.
man.
You know what buzzer beater I'm
talking
talking
about.
about.
I'm talking about you all almost getting beat by that 16 seed.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if you had
well,
a buzzer beater or not, but you almost got beat.
See, here's the thing. Whenever they beat people, they know that Duke fans are like, after the first 3 minutes, they're like, man, we wanted an exciting game and now it's over. So they kind of keep it close for a while just to make sure their fans get a good show first, and then they just end up winning.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure.
Kentucky got their buzzer beater this year,
They did.
so
They did.
they got their fill. All right, that's number 2. So we've got 2
We
and
could talk about that for a while. No, sir.
2 and 9 filled.
2 and 9. Yep.
Okay. Blooming flowers. Flowers are in bloom. What do you think? How do you like that? Are you a gardening man?
No. I mean, I'm gonna say I'll put that at like 6,
Okay.
just because it's like I don't hate it, but I don't really care about it all that much.
It's the best of the worst to you.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's fine.
So we'll put that at 6. How about allergy season?
Allergy season.
Yeah.
Allergies.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna put that at 8, just above peeps.
Wow.
You know,
Wow. Okay.
I really hate peeps.
Wow. I didn't know. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, there you have it.
Shout out to my peep haters.
Wow. Strong. I'm wondering why you didn't put it at 10.
Well, I don't. I figure there's something coming. That's
Okay.
Could you do a
worst.
Peeps more? I was thinking about that. I don't know that I've ever tried that.
I bet you could.
I
try
bet you
it.
could.
I mean, you think you would like it that way?
Probably. You throw chocolate and graham cracker in the mix. It's kind of like those pickled bologna. You throw the cheese in there and the cracker, and it's not too bad.
Maybe you need a pickled bologna s'more.
Oh,
Right.
Try that.
I
Yeah.
feel like I'd feel
Sounds
bad
about right.
watching the peep melt. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true. You'd have an emotional attachment to the
yeah,
peep.
it's shaped like a little chick.
I got you.
Yeah.
Probably the same.
How about spring break?
Spring break. Let's go.
Spring break's fun.
Let's go 3 on spring break.
You got big spring break plans?
I do. I'm going to Louisiana.
Well, there you go.
I'm gonna eat my weight in bull crawfish.
That
Probably
sounds
not-
delicious.
Maybe not that much, but I am gonna eat a ton of it. I haven't had bull crawfish in like probably 6 or 7 years. I bet.
No way.
Yeah, it's been that long.
But by putting that at 3, it tells me that you're waiting for something good at 1.
I just figure there's something.
So we're gonna go rainy afternoons, like a nice spring rain. No.
Spring rain. You know what? I'm going. Wait, afternoons? You say?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 7 on afternoons
Okay.
because I can golf in the morning, and then we get done and it starts to rain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Let's go 7.
Okay. 7.
Yeah,
How about grilling?
grilling.
Grilling outside.
Let's go 4 on that.
Okay.
I like to grill.
Do you grill?
I do sometimes. I have a Blackstone, and so I guess I griddle.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but the gas grill and stuff, I don't have one, but I like it. Like
That's
the
fine.
idea of it, you know.
Yeah, it's nice to get out there.
I like it
Do
the
you-
4th best in the spring.
4th best. That's not bad. You still have what? Number 1 open?
1, 5, and 10. I
1,
got
5, and 10.
best, middle, best, middle, worst.
All right, let's
Here we
see
go.
what's next. Opening day of baseball.
That's a good 5.
All right.
That's a good 5. I'm a decent, like I'm an okay baseball fan, but it's more like towards October. Opening day is okay. So yeah, that's a good 5.
Okay.
Well, these are going to be terrible. Both of these.
Here we go. 1 and 10. How about wearing shorts too early and regretting it? Think we've all been there. It looks
Oh,
nice
like-
outside. You wear
okay.
shorts. You
So how
commit
do-
to shorts, but then
I commit to shorts, but it's too cold.
it's too cold.
I guess I'll put that at 10.
You're gonna put that at 10.
Playing
All right.
playing golf, it's like you're out there and you're like, man, this is gonna be a nice day, and then you wish you had a blanket.
Yeah,
I got you.
we've all been there.
All right, what's my number 1? going to be good, I bet.
Pollen all over your car.
All right.
Pollen
All right.
covering your car.
Yes,
You park outside, don't you?
I do.
I park outside too.
Yeah.
My wife gets the garage. So that pollen
It just is caked on there.
caked on there.
You know what? I always think of it like it's like magic dust, and it makes my car fly.
Oh, okay.
It helps my imagination.
That's why you have it number one.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that was on purpose for sure.
Well, let's read this out.
I was
Here we go.
hoping. Let's do it.
This is Jake's spring top 10. 10 is wearing shorts too early and regretting it.
Yep.
9 is peeps.
Yep.
8 is allergies.
Good so far.
7 is rainy afternoons. 6, blooming flowers. 5, baseball opening day. 4, grilling or whatever a Blackstone is.
Yeah, griddles.
Griddles.
Yep.
Yeah. 3, spring break. 2, March Madness buzzer beaters. And 1, pollen all over your
Yeah.
car.
Because a buzzer beater's fine
Yeah.
as long as you don't have pollen on your car. If you do, you're out there looking at the pollen. You're not watching the game.
Exactly. Well, what a great exercise.
That
People
was
are going
fun.
to be real blessed by this. Real blessed by this. And I'm thankful that we got to do this.
Yeah.
And
There's a reason, right?
yeah,
Let's have fun.
spring
Talk about peeps.
with my peeps here.
Peeps with my peeps.
Well, if you were able to join us this Sunday, GJ didn't feel like working last week. And
Right.
so I had to step in, very last minute.
I still don't feel like it today, so I'm sitting over here. Y'all just take
Yeah,
over.
like, GJ, you doing the podcast? Nah, you guys can do it.
It's because he was sleeping while I was preaching. But but I got the chance to preach, and we were in Philippians 1.
Yeah. You did a
and-
good job, by the way.
Thanks, man. And with Philippians 1, we've got to see Paul kind of encourage the church at Philippi about what it means to live a gospel life, and really to see his thankfulness and affection for them because they were helping him in his gospel ministry. So let me go ahead and read. The first couple of verses, he just greets them, him and Timothy, and lets them know how thankful he is for them. And then look in verse 3. Here's what it says. It says, I give thanks to my God for every remembrance of you, always praying with joy for all of you in my every prayer, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And really, the first thing I wanted to focus on in this verse, and one of the big things that stuck out to me, is Paul's attitude of thankfulness and joy towards this church. The church was experiencing some difficult stuff. A background is, a lot of scholars believe that they were facing some opposition from outside that was causing them to kind of be afraid and kind of be a little bit skittish and frightened. But also, we actually see that in chapter 1 and verse 28. But also, they were kind of in conflict, especially these two ladies were in conflict and having some sort of fight in the church. And there wasn't peace, there was division. But instead of Paul just kind of calling them out right away, and we see in some other books that he's pretty quick to call them out, especially like the church in Galatia. He's pretty quick to get on them for the way that they need to be corrected. But that's not the case with this church. The first thing he is thankful towards them. Why? Because, one, he saw the way that the gospel had changed them from the very first day to now. And kind of, two, their kind of response right away was to partner and do the work of the gospel. That they were not only changed by the gospel, but they lived it and shared it with others. And so, Paul is thankful for them, and also he's really thankful for them in the midst of he's writing to them from jail. And that kind of changes the way that I read this book as well. Of like, the first thing he talks about is thankfulness while he's in jail. And so, kind of the first thing we looked at is, a gospel life is a thankful life. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts of, we see Paul's example. How can gratitude change the way believers respond to everyday frustrations? Paul could have been frustrated with the way they were acting. He could have been frustrated about his situation. But we see the gospel cause them to have gratitude. So how do you think that gratitude changes the way believers respond to frustrations like that?
Well, I think that like the main way is that it just puts everything into like proper perspective. I think so many times when we're going through something, like that's the only thing that we see. Like, human nature is to focus on whatever the problem is, and we don't really see. I was thinking about this morning actually, because when you preached on the first chapter, so I was just reading further, and I was thinking about like how whenever I have something going on that is a struggle, it keeps me from seeing other people's difficulties sometimes. Like I'm so focused on what I have in front of me that there could be somebody in need around me that I don't see, because I'm so focused on how am I going to solve whatever I've got going on. And so I think that if we keep in perspective the fact that, God calls this life a mist, and that compared to eternity, which we're going to have with him, that this is nothing. I think when you keep it in that perspective, it makes everything that we're going through, one, it's easier to get through because we know we're not alone in it, but it also helps us to know that this isn't the only thing that there is, and that things are going to get better. And so, that's easier said than done. Like I said, I struggle with that a lot. Just whenever things come up, I just want to fix everything right then. I tend to kind of obsess over little things that might be wrong. But whenever we keep in perspective the fact that we're saved by grace, the fact that we're called to help others, and we keep them in front of us, it really helps to kind of put into proper perspective these struggles that we have.
Yeah, I think that, that is a really good word of, it changes the way that we view what life's all about. It changes the way that we view time and, the seasons that we're in, and really the earthly versus eternal life that we have. I think that's a really good point. And when you were talking about that, you also kind of made me remember, when we're thinking about the gospel and what it's about, and you kind of touched on this about how we do think about ourselves, and we can be tempted just to think about the gospel as us and our salvation and our relationship with God. And it is all those things. But also, when we truly understand the gospel, we know that, it's Christ who came to die for all. And so he came to die for his church, and he came to die so that we could go and make disciples. And so when we truly begin to think about that and really, internalize that in our hearts, we see that the gospel is for everyone. The gospel is for us to love other people and make disciples with other people. So it changes the way that maybe we view other people's sin, or I guess, other people's struggles, where we might be ready to show more love and grace, rather than just viewing it as like their sin and their difficulties and struggles are getting in the way of my life, or what I have going on. But it really starts to get us to think of, how can we love our neighbor as we love ourselves? And I think gratitude, and also just like sometimes, we can be really frustrated with people with how they're acting. But if we can take a step back and we've got the opportunity to know them for a while and look at how far that they've come, just an earthly example is, you know, getting frustrated with my son. Sometimes he's a little slow to get up in the morning, and I have to help him along and, just gently correct him into getting ready for school quicker. But if I think about it, now he's able to brush his own hair and brush his own teeth and get his clothes on, and whether it can still be a little frustrating and he's not as far along as I'd hoped, he's a lot further than he once was. And that's just an earthly example of what we can do with some believers. We're all going to grow. We're all going to still stumble, but we can be thankful that they're not who they were before they knew Christ.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of thinking in a similar vein of a lot of times churches, leaders, members can get bogged down by criticism from the inside, from other, church members, or the outside community or people that are, have things or complaints to lobby at the church. How do you think a church can be more shaped by thankfulness, by joy, rather than, what people are criticizing it about?
Well, I think having a clear vision is a really important thing. And I know that for us, the last couple of years, we've kind of rolled out this vision of reaching 50,000 people over the next 5 years. And I feel like when churches kind of lose sight of why they're doing what they're doing, it's easy to get caught up into little minute details and frustrations, and this person isn't acting the right way and all these things. But when we keep in perspective, our goal is to reach people for Jesus, all the other things kind of melt away in comparison. And I think that it allows us, I know that we've seen through the jail ministry and through just seeing people come to know Christ through some of our activities and just different things. And it's really helped me to see that not only what we're doing it's worth it and it's a good thing, but it's also exciting. We can be thankful and very grateful that God includes us in his work, because it's not only good for them, but it's really satisfying and really exciting to be a part of it. And so I think that, when churches lose track of that and it becomes just about the functional things that churches do and less about people, you lose that joy and excitement that comes along with the goal and reaching the goal. And so I think that, we always have to keep in proper perspective the vision that God's given us and how that's the most important thing to go after. And it's less about, sometimes it's less about how you get there and more that you get there,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's so important to not just have a goal, but kind of something that, I'm no expert in this at all in this question, but something I was convicted about is maybe not always celebrating those wins when they happen, or not looking for them or seeing that change in people. And I think that part of gratitude, part of thankfulness, part of, joy is really taking the time when God does something to celebrate it, to point it out, to give him the glory and praise when he does something. And there can be times where I'm tempted to dwell more on, what didn't go well or what people are saying. And then kind of when something good happens. But I think that we've got to be intentional as believers to, when God does something, to give him glory and praise, and right then and there. I think that is one thing that can really, kind of fuel thankfulness in our hearts. And it's an important thing because there's so many reasons that people want to give us to be cynical and critical in this world, and we do have to cultivate joy because of what God has done and what He's doing.
Mm-hmm. I was reading just like a little bit further, like in chapter 2, he's talking about Timothy and Epaphroditus. I guess that's right, how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
But just talking about how Epaphroditus had gotten sick while he was there ministering to Paul, like as a representative of the church. And it says that he's going to send him back. And the last thing he says in chapter 2 is, therefore welcome him in the Lord with great joy and hold people like him in honor, because he came close to death for the work of Christ, risking his life to make up what was lacking in your ministry to me. And so that really kind of hit me that like you said, not only are we supposed to do these things, but it's okay and even a good thing to honor people and be excited about what people do and celebrate those things, like you said. And I know that in the past, like with church experience, sometimes you just forget to do that.
Yeah.
You don't take the time to do it, and it's really, you're missing out on a great opportunity for like momentum and excitement and all those things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it encourages that person who's being faithful, and it encourages us when we come alongside them as the body of Christ and celebrating, what God is doing through them and in them. And really, that's kind of leads us to the second point of what, Paul is celebrating the fact that not just Epaphroditus, but the Philippians, that they were ready to join in the work of the gospel, that they were ready to, one way I said it was participate or partnership. Really, in the passage, this idea of, they were a part of the work. And not that the work is what saves them, but the fact that they were saved, a sign to them was that they were joining in on the work. That all of us, if we truly know God and we love God, that we're going to want to serve God. You even talked about in chapter 2, it talks a lot about us being like Christ, who humbled himself to be the form of a servant. And so we know that when we're serving, we're being like Jesus. We're joining in on the gospel work, and that is kind of, if you're doubting or if discouraged about am I a believer, it's not our works that save us, but if you can look at yourself that you have a heart that's willing to serve and is involved in sharing the gospel, that should be an encouragement to you that you're probably walking in the right direction with the Lord. And so kind of we talked about this idea of like joining in and looking for opportunities. Like your opportunities are going to be different than mine, and my opportunities are going to be different than the different people that we have in the church. So I want to ask this question: what are some gospel opportunities that are easy to overlook because they might seem small?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times we place on pedestals these certain testimonies and stories, and so we see somebody who goes overseas and shares the gospel in that way, and we think that, okay, that's up here, and then my life is kind of down here as far as how important it is. Mm-hmm. Or we just see like a pastor maybe that has a huge platform or something, and we think like, okay, well, he's really doing the work, and like I'm over here, all I'm doing is just going to work every day. Like what's the big deal about that? But like the Bible says that heaven celebrates anytime somebody comes to the Lord. And so it doesn't matter how or where or how many people at once. Like it's just that we are participating in that work. And so we just have to keep, an eye out just in everyday situations, how we can share the gospel with people. Like I know especially before I worked in churches, it was really easy to have conversations with coworkers, and a lot of times it was about kind of anything and everything, because you're there, and the jobs that I did weren't super exciting, so we just talked about stuff, and so being able to just sit there and go, I'm going to ask him about his faith. I'm going to see what he actually does believe, because I don't know that yet. Or we've done these acts of kindness where we give out just an invite card, and just hoping that God blesses that person, and knows that we're praying for him. And I think just things as small as that can, like, you never know how that's going to start somebody's journey towards Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we keep our eyes on what we feel like are the bigger things, then we're never going to really be effective in our own day-to-day life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about how many opportunities that are around us where people have a need, and it doesn't have to be like, it could be a financial need. It could be someone that just needs an encouraging word or whatever. But I think we see Jesus and his ministry, there were big needs that presented themselves, people that were paralyzed or blind or all those sorts of things. Or really, there's the woman at the well who was really just looking for water. Jesus was always looking for opportunities where people were in need, and he used those opportunities sometimes to meet their physical needs, but also to meet their spiritual needs. And those opportunities are all around us. And not that an unbeliever never steps in and helps with those things, but for us as believers, those are really just easy ways for us to get involved in people's lives, show love, and hopefully it bridges an opportunity for us to share the gospel. And those are not small, those are big opportunities for the kingdom. It talks about, in the Bible, Jesus talks about the faith of a mustard seed is, so it can move mountains, faith can. And so what might start as a small opportunity, God can use that in such a big way in someone's life. But we have to be looking for them.
Well, and people need to realize that just because maybe you don't feel comfortable or you can't give a 30-minute sermon like Joel or GJ, that doesn't mean that that's what it takes to reach the people that you come in contact every day. Like, you're not going to go up to your coworker and be like, "Hey, during your lunch break, I'd like to talk to you for 30 minutes about about Philippians 1 through 11." It comes through just normal conversation where you just share your story and share what God's done for you, and that's going to get you most of the way there.
Yeah, we look for that. Or sometimes, we think that people might not be interested, but they are. I've heard of people that, I'm not saying you have to lecture, but some people are like, "Hey, what would you think about us reading our Bible at lunch together, inviting a couple people?" And God has done big things through that. So it's just kind of be open to the opportunities that are in front of us. So that's kind of looking for new opportunities, and even small ones can make a big difference. How about the people that are already serving? But we can know just from growing up in the church for years or serving on staff, sometimes there's a danger of our giving and our serving just becoming routine instead of worship. Paul, a big part of it to him, and he was thankful for, is part of joining in on the gospel work was they gave financially as well, so that he could share the gospel in one of the biggest cities in history or of that time. And so when we think of those giving and serving, both ways of ministry and worship, how do you think we can keep from those just becoming routine in our lives? Or I guess what I mean by routine, like, it's okay for those things to be routine, but what I mean is like things we just do that are no longer worshipful.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that can be super easy to happen. I know, um, like I grew up. I think you probably did too. Like our dads are both pastors, and growing up in church, you just kind of you get used to the things that happen in church, and so like when the offering plates are passed, some people are going to throw something in, and it just becomes almost like you do it without thinking about it. And I think that that's kind of the main thing that we have to do is just, the next time you are in church, maybe like think about the significance of what we're doing there, and why we do it. We try our best every week, like when we pass the offering around, to say like, hey, this is prescribed in Scripture as part of our worship, and so that's why we're setting aside this time. Um, but it's really up to the person sitting there to reflect and to think about that in their own life, in order for it to be meaningful. The money that you give is going to go and be impactful, but for you to participate in the work and really get the benefit of that yourself, we just have to know that like we're doing it for a purpose and that God is going to bless us. And I know, like for me, we do online giving and it just comes out every week whenever my paycheck comes out. And so it's easy to just kind of forget about it, and you get the notification on your phone and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool, that happens every week. But I think doing that, and then also like as we serve, just knowing that if you serve like in the kids area, let's say, that can be a pretty stressful thing, and so it can get to be, I'm sure, kind of a burden sometimes to go in there and just be like, okay, the only thing you're thinking about is just get through this hour,
Yeah.
make sure all these kids are alive and their parents pick them up, and I think that like if we look at it just specifically that, let's say, if we look at an opportunity, like we're not only are we going to try to share the gospel with these kids, but we're also providing their parents with an opportunity to be able to be in the service and receive a message themselves. So there's a lot that goes into what we do that is more about just what we're doing. And I think if we can think about that, then we're going to be able to receive that blessing.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of going right along with your example, I was talking with someone, a mom, this week, who her young child really struggled at first uh, to come to nursery, and so they kind of had to take a little bit of a break. But then in the past few months, because this mom was just so thankful for a nursery worker that was there every single week, and now their child just loves to come to nursery, and because she's excited to see that worker, and now that family is able to go to grow group again, and then they even serve and are pouring into others. And you think, well, I'm just looking after and loving kids, and that's not a big thing. But we see, because of this one person's faithfulness to the Lord, that a young child is learning to love church and hearing about Jesus. Uh, their parents are now being able to join in community and being poured into, and then they're able to in turn pour into others. That's three levels of impact just because one person is being faithful. And that can seem routine, but if we remember why we're doing the things that we're doing, the heart behind it, it just has such an impact. And I know what Wednesday, we're recording this on a Wednesday. In a few hours, we got our activities. It would be easy. It's another Wednesday night, another, lesson in this. But it's important just to step back and say, God, use tonight for your glory, for your praise. Use this to sow seeds for the gospel. And when we step back and remember what we're doing it for, it can really help us to have the right perspective. Um, And so, a gospel life, it's so important to join in the work. But as we do that, like I said before, in verse 6, let me read this. It says, I'm sure of this, that he who started a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. And so Paul reminds them that, yes, they partnered with the gospel. They started in this work, but it's really God who first started the good work in them. He saved them, and then God is going to be faithful to finish the work he started in them. It's not us who do the work and change ourselves or make ourselves better, but it's the grace and the free gift of God. And so as we join in on the work, as we participate in the gospel, how can we remember to trust in God's faithfulness without becoming passive? I think some people go so far of, trusting that God does the work, God is the one that does the changing, so much so that we can kind of sit back and say, God, do your thing, and we'll just wait for you to move. How do we protect ourselves from becoming too passive while trusting that God's the one that does the work?
Yeah, I think it's a good perspective to have that God is the one doing everything that needs to be done for salvation and all those things. But like in the Bible, it tells us to go and make disciples. Like there are commands for us as his people. And it's really like a privilege that he gives us to participate in the work that he's doing. I have no doubt that God, being who he is, he could do everything on his own and that would be fine. But he allows us to participate, and he works through us to be able to grow our faith and also be able to help us to build relationships and all the things that come along with it. And so, and ultimately, he receives more glory having us participate than if it were just him doing everything on his own. And so, I think as a church, it's a good thing to say, we're going to rely on God's faithfulness. We're going to believe that he's going to do it. But we also have to be mindful and really embrace the things that God has told us to do that are ours to do. And so, like, I think you brought up Romans, where it talks about, how will they hear if nobody tells them? And it's like, it's our responsibility to go tell them. And so if we embrace all the things that God says, hey, I want you to do these things and I'm going to work through you. And if we really embrace that, then, we're going to see those opportunities and not just sit back and say, well, if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. I think that ultimately, like I said, that's a good perspective to have and to know that God's in control, but he also gives us responsibilities.
Yeah. I like what you said of, it really is a privilege that God allows us to join in on the work that he's doing, right, in the gospel. And we can trust like that it's not dependent on our own strength. And we can trust even that, like, if the Lord has saved us, that there's not something that we can do to fall out of his favor or a relationship with him. But at the same time, we can trust that God gives us this blessing to not only be saved ourselves, but to be involved in others growing and others changing. And really, that's kind of the last idea of the passage, in verse 11 of, he tells them, and I pray this is in verse 9, I pray this, that your love will keep on growing in the knowledge and every kind of discernment, so that you may approve the things that are superior and may be pure and blameless in the day of Christ. And so filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. And so Paul's kind of encouraging and telling them what their gospel life, not only is it joining in on the ministry, but in their life, they're going to be growing. They're going to be bearing this fruit. And there's he starts with love, and then he kind of talks about there's two pillars, there's two ways that this love is built on. It's built on knowledge, and it's built on discernment. And then he kind of describes it as like those two things lead to a superior, pure life, like the idea of the good life, the excellent life. Why do you think that God calls us to know, but also to grow in wisdom? How does that help our love? What do you think?
I think one, the more we know who God is, the more we understand who we are before Him, and the more we understand what He's done for us, and so it gives us that perspective that we need. But also, like, the more we know about the character of Jesus and the character of God our Father, the easier it is for us to know what to do in certain situations. I know a lot of times you hear people that would say, like, I'm just gonna wait, and I'm gonna listen, and God's gonna tell me what to do. And it's like, well, He has already. Like, He's given us His word, and if we know it and know it well, we don't have to sit and wait for like a magical sign of some kind, and we don't have to hear Him audibly say, hey, don't do this or do that. We can know who the character or what the character of Jesus is, and then we can discern what He would do and what we should do in turn. And so I think that we just have to have the perspective that reading and knowing things about Jesus isn't just one. It's not just head knowledge. It affects our love for Him, like you said, but also it's literally the way God communicates with us and how He builds us up to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah. I think that's good. And really, we know that God gives us the Holy Spirit, His power to lead us, but just with experience and seeing other people and other mature believers is really oftentimes God leads us by the Holy Spirit, but He will use, what we're learning in His Word to help us discern with choices and wisdom, and even when we're facing these doubts or facing opposition, God just brings the knowledge that we have of Him and that truth to forefront in our mind and our hearts. And so it's so important, the idea of, the Bible's not just filled with lists of laws and all these things that we ought to be doing just for the case. But it shows us, when we live a life that's pleasing to God, we're not promised, no troubles or like untold riches, but we are going to receive good things. We are going to receive a blessing. We are going to receive, the good life. On Wednesday nights, we're going through the 10 Commandments, and we can just see if everybody lived by the 10 Commandments, it wouldn't be a burdensome thing for society or for people.
Mm-hmm.
It would be this taste of, heaven on earth, right? Of us all treating each other with dignity and honor and love. And when we live a life by God's truth and by God's wisdom, we're going to, receive that fruit of righteousness and goodness here on earth. But we do that with, the knowledge that it's not going to work out perfectly here. But we're doing that so that when Christ returns, like it says, we can be pure and blameless. How bad is it going to be if we claim to love the Lord, but when He returns, He finds us, slacking off, It's like when my wife tells me to do the dishes and all that sort of stuff as she's gone, and she comes back and the house is still a mess. It's a rough scene.
Yeah.
I know you can't relate, but
well, I was gonna say, like, that's a hypothetical thing, because you would you always are killing it.
That would never happen.
You know what I mean? But some people might.
If they could imagine that.
I got you.
And it wouldn't be a good scene, right? And the idea of like, we don't just obey God though, just to like earn His favor, but it's a gift. His commandments and His knowledge, His love, His wisdom. It's a gift for us so that He can gain glory and that we can be a part of that living life to the praise of his glory. Something that, like, our lives are worship, our lives are sacrifice. And it's a beautiful thing that God gives us to be able to grow in him. And so I hope that everyone out there is doing that. But if you don't know Jesus, this is the free gift of the good life that God is offering you through his son Jesus, that he died for your sin, and that if you just turn away from your sin and believe that Jesus died for you and that he rose again, that just as he has eternal life, you can have eternal life in him as well. And you can have the love, knowledge, and wisdom, and really the joy that comes from knowing him. That's a gift that you can receive today. It could be that you want to know more about the things of God. You're welcome to join us. We have groups for all ages, grow groups here at the church at 9:15 that meet every Sunday. We would love to have you. You can talk and get to know people and connect with people and grow in God. And we also have worship service at 10:30. Jake leads us in worship, and we have a good time of preaching as well. So you're welcome to join us anytime then.
The sermon this week won't be quite as good as this past week, but it'll be all right. It'll be pretty good.
I hear the slides are going to be really good. That's for sure. So we hope that you can join us then. But thank you for joining us today. I hope that you are enjoying a gospel-filled life, and I hope that you're enjoying a good spring week as well.
I'm going to go enjoy the pollen on my truck.
You're going to fly. You're going to fly. Have a good one, everybody.